All right, welcome back, Business Freedom Podcast listeners. Y'all are in for a treat. I have spent 21 minutes just shooting the breeze with Andy Green, who is going to, the essence of why I started this podcast is what Andy has experienced in his business growth journey. And he has a ton of value to add, like-minded to the Real Estate B-School philosophies and principles, where doesn't spend a whole lot of money on junky internet leads. He's building a business that is based on service and value, and it will withstand what the shift storm that we're going through. Andy, give us the hook. Give us the hook. Why someone's going to want to listen to the end of this podcast? Like you got to X units and then it came apart and now you rebuilt it and we're going to do this units. Like, give us the headline for this podcast.
Well, I think more than anything, what I've gotten really, really, really good at is failing in this business. And the one thing I can say about myself, though, is I have thick skin. I get knocked down, I get back up, and I just keep taking one step forward. And I'm kind of a slow learner, if I'm being honest with you, because some of the mistakes I've made, I've actually made them a couple times. But I built the business really fast and just kind of fell down and have had to pick myself back up and keep moving forward. And we've learned a lot of really valuable lessons along the way. So if you want to avoid some of the failures that I've made in my business, then you've definitely come to the right place.
Yeah. And that's one of the requirements to be on the podcast, just an open, honest conversation about what it really is like to build a real estate team. So I can tell that we're going to get that from you. And I appreciate that. And people that are willing to have authentic conversations. Take us back to when you decided to build the team and what that growth looked like. And you got to the point where it was maybe not on the firmest of foundations. Take us back to decision to build a team, the things that you failed in initially. Like there's so many agents out there that if they just got a little bit of leverage, leverage comes with technology, systems, and people. But take us back to that, like just starting a team. I think you said, and it was like 2013 or that time frame.
Yeah, it was 2011, and we had just started to come out of the downturn in the market crash. And before that, I was in new home sales for 6.5 years, and I made it as far as I could in that business and gained some really, really strong sales skills. But didn't understand the resale side. But at the time, I'd done as much as I could. I have a ceiling that I keep hitting, and it's time to break through that ceiling. So I went out on my own and just struggled for the next probably 5, 6, 7 years, because right after I did that, the market crashed. And so I was in Boise, Idaho at the time. My family was building and developing in Portland, Oregon. I moved to Portland to run the sales and marketing for their development firm. Started to have some success there, and then the market crashed there. It was just lagging where I was at in Boise, Idaho. So I think more than anything, I learned a lot up to that point. I had the sales skills. I understood lead generation to a certain extent, but I didn't know how to put all the pieces together. And I was recruited by one of the top agents in my market in Portland, Oregon, and joined his team. And he pulled back the curtain for me, and I really saw what it took to sell 100 homes a year. And I wanted to do it in my small town of Wilsonville, Oregon. Small little town, about population 20,000. I came to him and told him like what my vision looked like to do that. I said I wanted to do it with him. And he just didn't see the vision for it. So we shook hands, parted ways, and I started my business in 2011 with the knowledge, those missing pieces that just weren't there in the past. I closed 27 homes my first year, 41 the second, 75 by year 3. And by making one tweak to my business when I was at that 75 mark, we went from 75 to 145 transactions. And I've been watching and listening to you, Lars, for a long time. So thank you for your contribution to the industry and the business. I bought your B School back in, I think it was probably around 2012, because I'm just not a systems guy. I'm more of a visionary and a sales guy. So I needed some help there, but I hired very, very strategically in those first couple of years. I hired in year one a full-time admin. I hired a full-time marketer as well. So it was me in sales, full-time admin and marketer. And that took us to 45 sales, and I hired a showing assistant. And then I ended up with 2 showing assistants, and we went to 75 transactions. They graduated to full-time agents. And then, we went to 145 that next year.
Yeah. So talk about, this is where the brutal honesty comes in.
I'm ready.
The year you did 145 sides, you had pure time, money, freedom, no stress. Like, what was that year like? How challenging was that year when you almost doubled the business?
I want to say it was really challenging. And at the same time, it's like I was able to breathe again because we hadn't made money in a long time. Those first 2-3 years, I just put every bit of profit back into the business to build it up to that 145. So I paid myself what I needed to eat, to clothe my family, and to have a roof over our heads, and then everything else went back to the business. So it was about 2015, we were at 145 sales. Our profit was really good. We were at about 36% profit that year. And I was still in production for most of that year. In July of 2015, I cut the cord and I moved out of production, which our profit, it changed at that point once I moved out. So it was a really challenging and hard year. And at the same time, it felt really good because I felt like I'd kind of reached the top of the mountain. And I have a lot of friends that sell a lot more homes than me, so I'm not delusional. But I felt like I accomplished something. So it did feel good at the same time, as hard as it was.
Yeah. So in those growth years where I guess you went from like 50 to 75 to 150, basically, what were the top 3 biggest challenges that if you were sitting down with somebody that's in it, or, what would you tell them to look out for, the common pitfalls?
Yeah. Hiring, leverage, and leadership are always the most challenging things in this business, in my opinion. And it's what I've struggled with the most. I went through 4 executive assistants in 4 years because I moved very fast. I make decisions quickly. I throw a lot of up against the wall, and some sticks, some doesn't. And I expect a lot. I work my butt off, and I expect the same thing from those around me. And I felt like I did a good job of hiring, but I probably didn't do a good enough job at setting expectations. And then number 2, leading those people forward. So I would say it was more of a failure on my part on the leadership than anything else. That has been the biggest struggle, is hiring people, training them properly, leading them, and helping them accomplish their goals.
Yeah. As a visionary to visionary, a lot of times we know exactly what needs to be done in a specific position, but we never told anybody that that's the way it's supposed to be done. Yeah. I even do it in my personal life, and it's just a recipe for disaster. Like,
Yeah.
you think, like, in my mind, I told you that, and it turns out that I didn't tell you that.
I could swear I told you that. That's kind of my famous saying. I could swear we talked about this. No, we did not talk about it.
I've changed it. I'm like, I say, in my mind, I told you this, because I honestly, I've heard it enough where I don't know if I told them or not.
Yeah.
So as you think, actually, let's deconstruct the current business. We had a conversation, and I think this is one thing that you and I are really aligned around. I see a lot of real estate teams that think they have a real business, and I really don't care how many homes you sell. If it's built on a foundation of, paying someone else to generate a lead, or spending $100,000 a month on mass media, we never really get the benefit of seeing someone's P&L when they talk about their numbers, because they're only talking about, I sell X number of homes.
Right.
Um, talk about your philosophy around lead sources. I think you mentioned like 75% of your business is from, stuff that isn't in that world. Talk about kind of, and you even talked about generating internet leads. I don't want you to dive too deep into that because I think that's something you maybe a superpower of yours, but um, what got us here is not going to get us there, in my opinion.
Yeah.
Let's just have a conversation around what that looks like in your business today.
Well, I think for most agents, Lars, you're exactly right. I think if they were buying leads, then what got them to where they are now is not going to get them into the future. I think one of the things that I was really forward thinking with is I've never believed in buying leads. I never have. I've always wanted to generate my own leads, my own business. And 77% of our business last year was from sphere of influence, from referrals, from people, either from not a lot of agent referrals. I think we had like 6 or so, but referrals from our sphere of influence, and then open houses. So those are our main sources of business. Between those, that's 70 and past clients. That's 77% of our business. And I was really intentional with that. The most I've ever spent in a month on Zillow was, I think, $1,200. And that only lasted maybe 3 months. And I'm like, okay, I'm not doing this. Why did I do this? I don't believe in it. So why did I do it? So I cut that. But we do a little bit with like Commissions Inc. and YLOPO. But I spend maybe about $1,200 a month total on those 2 lead sources. So really where I believe an agent should be in their business is, real estate's all about relationships. It is all about relationships. And if you can control relationships in your market, then you're going to get business. So it just is a matter of establishing those relationships, deepening those relationships. And Gary Keller said something several years ago about building a moat around your business. And you do that by staying top of mind. So I'm a true believer in video and video marketing and staying in front of people through video, because video content it has staying power. They can grow to know, like, and trust you over time, where an email will never do that. It will never do that. So we're really big on video. We're going all in on video and just deepening relationships with people that already know us, like us, and trust us.
Yeah. Let me ask you this. So what have you done? Have you ever read the book, The Referral Engine?
I haven't. Mm-mm.
I forget it's a book that's worth reading. So it's basically looking at your business. What does he call it? Not the reverse funnel, but it's looking at it. You know how we typically, leads are up here and then we funnel it down to conversations, to appointments set, met, signed. It looks at it like your funnel only opens up once you've done the transaction. So it's really to your point that if you do a good enough job, during the transaction, that you have someone that is going to, be a fan forever.
Yeah.
But truly doing a great job. Have you contemplated what the experience needs to look like on your team when it comes to, well, it's a separate question to get paid what you're worth, but have you looked at the actual service that your buyers and sellers are getting? We call it the Ritz-Carlton of real estate. Like, people are going to be knocking down our door to help them buy and sell because we're the Ritz. Like, if you want premium, you're going to come to us. And that's demonstrated itself in industry after industry that's gone through complete transformation. What are your thoughts on that? Have you contemplated, have you built in the systems to provide that service, or are you working on it?
I think that we're on the early phase of that, and I've heard you talk about it before. So it's definitely something that's happening in our leadership team conversations.
Yeah.
I do think that we have a long ways to go, a lot of improvement, and we've been rebuilding the business over the past couple of years, and I think that customer experience is probably like the next phase in our evolution, and really diving deep into it, because we're already good at it, and I think that we could be great with the right game plan.
Yeah, that's awesome. Yeah, that's just encouragement that you're on the right path. I don't think there's anything more important in any real estate team right now, especially with like class action lawsuits around commission and the biggest MLSs in the country and all this crazy stuff. just doubling down on making sure your clients are
Yep.
blown away and
Yeah.
empowering your team to do it. We did something, and you'll only be able to see this if you're on the video version. A book was recommended by my business partner, The $6,000 Egg, and easy team read. And then those are the 10 golden rules of client service. Just like a new era that we're entering, and just masterminding around those 10 categories. Highly recommend it. And that's for anyone that's listening to this too. If you're running a real estate team, I believe half your business, 400 deals, can come from simply doing a good job for the client that's in front of you, which is honestly different than how I built my real estate team. It was generate a lead or force them to register and then beat them over the head with the phone. you
Right.
know so what are your thoughts on looking out, let's say 3 years? What do you see for the real estate team? Yeah, let's what's your vision for the real estate team 3 years from now?
So our real estate team, I see us being at a point where I already have great leadership in place, really strong leadership that's committed to the business, our future, and they're invested. So I feel like over the years, I've finally figured that out, putting good leadership in place so that I don't have to be working 24 hours a week, 24 hours, 7 days a week, right? I'm still overseeing all of the marketing and lead gen. So I would see at some point me hiring somebody for that role. So I have 3 key leaders in place, and then I'm truly the CEO in the business. And I kind of go back and forth on agents, whether I want like this lean team that is doing 50, 70, 80 transactions, or I'm bringing in 20, 25 agents that are doing 24, 25, 28. And I think I found over time that you will have some all-stars that will sell 40, 50 transactions in a year. They'll just naturally gravitate towards that. And there are going to be some that are honestly happy at 18, 24 transactions. So I haven't quite gotten that figured out yet. What I can tell you is that our org chart for the next 2 years, we will be at 12 agents by the end of this year, and we'll probably be closer to about 20 agents by the end of 2020. And I feel like we have the infrastructure and the systems and the leadership to take us to where we want to go transaction wise. So really solidifying the lead gen side with a director of lead gen, a marketer, and also re-solidifying our ISA division. As we've been rebuilding, that's one area that's fallen off of our org chart for right now, and it's going to come back on probably in about the next 6 months.
Yeah, and not that you're asking for advice. I've seen both of those models. I think you're going to find that your business is going to generate as much. Your system is going to generate as much business as. Let me see if I can say this the right way. You're going to need agent. You're not going to need 20 agents if your business doesn't generate enough business for 20 agents. Focus on building the business, and then I've seen guys get just spun out on putting all these new people in that there's no business for them to do, and so it's almost like a lead with a revenue, lead with closings versus leading with agents. Like agents aren't going to solve your problems if you don't have a business that produces 250 transactions. If you can't get the business to 250, then you don't need 20 agents.
Right.
Because then they'll all be selling like 10 to 15 homes each. They'll be making moderate income. So
totally.
So that's awesome. What's the best advice you've ever received about business?
Best advice that I've ever received. I can think back to one of my sales trainers early on, and I don't know if it was so much advice. It was just kind of the way that he trained me. Um, but he trained me in such a way that he said, Andy, if you lead, they will follow. And I think that whether you're working with a salesperson or you're working with coaching a sales agent and helping them to accomplish their goals, that when you truly lead and you have confidence and you have enthusiasm and you back that up with experience and knowledge, you can literally accomplish anything in, I think, life and especially this business. But I just took that to heart really early on. And I think I did it really well at a high level on the sales side. And then I'm still a work in progress on the leadership side. Have a ways to go, but making progress all the time. So,
yeah, I was just thinking another question. How do you manage? You mentioned like you'll work, like you'll like Will Smith, like I'll beat everybody because I'll die on the treadmill kind of thing.
yeah.
How do you manage that? That to me, it feels hardwired. So there's something maybe in a jacked up childhood, or who knows. For me, it's a jacked up childhood that has me on this like transaction or this treadmill of achievement. But the downside of that is that it can go into every area of your life. How do you manage building a business you mentioned, I think you have kids.
Mm-hmm. 3 kids.
Yeah. So how do you manage the two worlds? How do you enjoy, not show up at home like the leader that nobody wants at home, like don't tell me what to do like you do at work, sort of thing. How do you manage the two worlds and still enjoy the ride?
It's kind of a tale of 2 different worlds for me. The first 4 years that I was building the business, I did exactly what you said. I outworked everybody because I just have never felt like I'm the smartest guy in school. If you look at my high school transcripts and what college I did have, I never got good grades in my entire life. I was more interested in having fun and hanging out with my buddies than anything else. But what I found and I started working at 13. I started landscaping, and I landscaped every summer. I washed dishes. I bussed tables. I waited tables. I bartended. So I always worked. So I think that I always had a good work ethic. And as I've been in this business, in sales, I've always outworked people. And I think that's, kind of a testament to my upbringing and my parents. And at the end of that 4 years, I worked my ass off so hard and grinded and put so much into it. I completely burned out, 100% burnout, and ended up in a partnership after a year and a half not working out and having to restart my business completely over again. And I think I thought at the time it was a couple things. There were some great people in that business, and there are still great people to this day. But I thought that it was going to solve my problem of having to work as hard as I did. And in the end, that it just wasn't the solution to my problem. And since then, I've chosen to give up some profit for time. So I've traded time for money. I don't work as hard today as I did in those early years. So my time, money, freedom, I'm probably, like, to be completely honest with you, I'm out of balance on the wrong side. I probably spend too much time doing things that I want to do, and I need to spend a little bit more time doing the things that I need to do in my business to scale it up and take it from, we were at 1.2 million in GCI last year to 2.4. So we're at that crossroads where we have a strong foundation, we have a good business, we have good leadership, and now it's time to just scale it up.
Yeah, that's awesome. Last question. What advice would you give someone in a couple minutes or less, someone who is, 50, 60 deals, they've got an assistant, and they're just starting to build a team? What's the one bit of advice that you would just hold them by their shoulders and look into the eye sockets of their soul and tell them this one thing?
That one thing would be to treat it like a business and have a plan. I just see too many people getting stuck in that area. And usually they get stuck a lot lower than 50 transactions from what I see, because they don't treat it like a business. I think when you have mentors in your life and you have coaches that have been there and done that and know the pitfalls and roadblocks and ceilings of achievement, and you listen to their advice and you come up with a plan that will help you accomplish your goals, whatever that might be. Because for that person, it might not be to sell 100 or 150 transactions. It might be to sell 50, just be more profitable and have more of a life. So everybody's goals are a little bit different. I don't think people get solid enough on their goals and their plan. So spend more time doing that on a weekly basis. And especially at the beginning of the year, like have your planning time, and then hold yourself accountable to that planning on a weekly basis and check in with yourself. Where am I? What was my plan? How am I executing on it? And I think at the end of 12 months, people would be amazed at the amount of progress that they can make and the steps towards the achievement of whatever it is that they want to achieve when they have that type of focus. People just aren't focused enough.
Yeah, I'd like to ask the question to people, like, the plan that you created 3 years ago, the 3-year plan that you created 3 years ago, did you achieve it? And like some people are like, well, I didn't build a 3-year plan 3 years ago. I'm like, okay, well, that's a problem. And some people, they just don't have a real system. It's easy to say what you want in the future, but like you said, it's hard to chunk it down, and a lot of times you'll sort of burn yourself out getting there because you don't really have a clear vision or really know how to get there. So I think that's super, super helpful. This has been awesome, man. It's not a lot of times I get to talk to someone who's really, that has sort of done the thing and learned a whole lot. And then you mentioned to me at one point, you just reset the whole thing, and it wasn't that long ago, but just to get right back up and to still produce a whole bunch of real estate, and you're willing to do whatever it took, in that transition to be able to do it. And sometimes it takes massive change and action like that to be able to do it. And most team leaders won't do it. They'll keep those crappy people in their lives. Not that they're crappy people, misfit, like core value misfits in their life. Because I believe everyone's a good person, and it doesn't mean they're good for your team. So that's awesome that you would share that. So that's it, brother. I appreciate your time. The listeners are going to have a good time with this one. And if you're at the point in your real estate journey where, I always go back to the time, money, stress equation. Like if you're putting in too many hours, you don't have a lot of net worth to show for that time. And the stress is just not worth it. Just reach out. We only have a conversation to offer you. There's nothing to sell you. It's a 45-minute conversation about your business and where you want to go and if we can help you get there. So go to realestatebschool.com. Thanks, brother. We'll talk to you guys soon.
Lars, it was awesome. Thank you.
Bye.